So next up, we have our industry panel titled Reconnecting on the Evolution of Mining Safety. Derek Budge, the Manager of Health, Safety and Environment at Redpath, will be our panel moderator. Derek has been with Redpath for over 20 years and is responsible for ensuring Redpath's approach to health, safety, and environment management. He makes sure it's consistent and focused on delivering world-class practices throughout the global operations. Derek has maintained his Canadian Registered Safety Professional designation since 2006, and for the past several years he has been chair of the OMA, the Ontario Mining Association, Mining Rules Committee, and represents the Ontario mining industry as industry co-chair of the Ontario MLRC, Mining Legislative Review Committee. Derek is a lifetime member of the Ontario Mine Contractors Safety Association and is a proud member of the WSN Board of Directors. Please welcome Derek, and he will be introducing the panelists.
Thanks, Michelle, and welcome everyone to our session. Should be very interesting. So I'd like to take this time to ask the guests, the panelists, to come up to the front, please. So first up, we have Don Duval to my immediate right. Don is the CEO of NORCAT, the Northern Centre for Advanced Technology. Don has spent more than 2 decades leading, growing, and transforming organizations and businesses. Don defines the strategy and directs operations of NORCAT, a global, multifaceted enterprise dedicated to advancing the dynamic and evolving needs of the new world of work and the innovation economy. Don serves on the board of several organizations and is a member of the Young Presidents Organization. He was a top 40 under 40 recipient, a 2-time TEDx speaker, and a founding member of a nonprofit theater company in Toronto. Don holds an undergraduate degree in chemistry from Queen's University and a Master of Applied Sciences and Engineering from the University of Toronto. To Don's right is Frank Demers. Frank rejoined Vale's base metal business in mid-2022 as the head of the Ontario Mines, where he leads the mining operations. Previously, Frank worked at Vale from 2001 to 2015, during which time he occupied roles in supervision, engineering, and management. His focus is on safe delivery of key objectives in HSE, production, costs, and people. Prior to rejoining Vale, Frank was Vice President Mining and Projects for Wallbridge Mining. He spearheaded efforts with respect to development of a new gold mining district in the James Bay territory of Quebec. He also led the corporate ESG and HSE strategies, along with driving project development and environmental impact assessments for permitting and construction of a gold mine. Frank currently sits on the board of directors of the OMA and was previously chair of the OMA Mine Managers Committee. He played an important role as an industry representative on the MLRC during the introduction of risk-based regulations through the 2014 Mining Health and Safety Prevention Review. To Frank's right is Samantha. Samantha Espley is an executive director for advisor for Stantec. She's a highly experienced mining engineer with over 35 years in industry. She leads operating teams and technical service groups as engineering manager of capital projects and as a corporate director leading innovation and technology for mines and processing facilities. She has an engineering degrees from both the University of Toronto and Laurentian University and is a licensed professional engineer. Samantha is also the recipient of the Governor General's Gold Medal, Women in Mining Trailblazer Award, Engineering Management Award of Excellence, and a Global Top 100 Woman in Mining. Samantha is chair of the Health and Safety Society and past president of the CIM and a fellow and industry chair of the Canadian Academy of Engineers. And lastly, we have Keith. Keith is the superintendent of occupational health and wellness for IAMGOLD Côté site. He has over 30 years of experience in the fields of disability management, occupational health and rehabilitation, and workplace mental health. Keith spent 10 years as the occupational medicine, disability management, and mental health lead for a large mining employer, and also 4 years as national director of the mental health strategy for Lifemark Health Group. Keith is a certified mental health first aid trainer. He's trained over 1,000 people in mental health first aid in the mining industry and he also holds a designation of a Certified Psychological Health and Safety Advisor through the Canadian Mental Health Association. So please welcome our panelists. So we're going to start the discussion with technology and innovation. So the first question is for Don. So Don, please briefly explain some of the technology that NORCAT is working on for the mining industry, such as the AI, VR, AR, simulators, and all that kind of stuff. And how does it benefit the industry?
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll kind of rationalize that because I can go on for hours. Yeah, for those who aren't fully aware, NORCAT, one of our divisions, is in the business of skilled labor training and development. And as it pertains to the innovations in technology, actually, funny enough, our fastest growing part of our business right now, which I think is a strong indication of the trends in the market, is the development and deployment of VR and AR learning solutions, typically integrated within other traditional means of educational programming. So you would have a combination now of in-person, perhaps online, and hands-on experiential. But the market data is showing that across skilled labor industries in most developed economies, there's a willingness to pay and integrate VR and AR and simulation training. And quite proudly, NORCAT has one of the world's largest mining equipment simulator training centers in the world, as measured by the number of different units and cabs that we deploy and train with. What's really interesting is, and I'll be brief on this, but if you think of the means to the end, why are companies, why are skilled labor industries, why is the mining industry pushing towards adopting these learning technologies? And there's data that we're now pulling out that not only is it more cost effective, but there is insight to suggest that you can train the same worker to achieve the same level of skill or higher, essentially cheaper, better, faster. And part of that is rooted in the experience of the actual educational journey is so meaningful that they'll talk about the learning experience afterward that drives knowledge retention. So the experience, the means to the end, actually is becoming more and more, I would say, meaningful. And so we're heavily investing in that. As I said, we've deployed a handful of solutions, not only in Sudbury, but across Canada and around the world. And I think the emerging trends in using these technologies to enhance the safety, the productivity, whatever it might be in the skilled labor workforce, is here to stay. And we're quite excited and optimistic where that market's going.
Okay, thanks for that, Don. So the next question is to Frank and Don. So we'll start with Frank, please. So what is Vale and NORCAT doing to help address the new age workforce where mechanical aptitude is lacking for underground workers? And then just please briefly touch on the relationship between Vale and NORCAT.
Okay. That's an interesting one because we've been working with NORCAT for quite a few years. I'll admit that upon my return here at Vale, I'm not 100% up to speed on everything we're doing because we've got a pretty broad relationship. But we do work very closely with NORCAT over the last few years. We've helped fund some development in the technologies that Don was mentioning earlier, and working together to help build capacity within the workforce, to help train and help recruit people as well. That the attraction or the use of technology with the workforce that we're trying to tap into now. Younger generation who's grown up used to social media, used to devices as a whole to help them learn and grow. I think that the collaboration that we have with NORCAT and other industry members really helps to, I'll say, water the flowers there so that people use and accept that technology as we go forward.
Yeah, just to give you a tangible, tactical example, about 5 years ago, Vale, quite proudly, and there's kind of a Vale reunion on this panel, but about 5 yeears ago, Vale was our first reference customer globally. So what we developed with their team was a virtual reality pre-operational circle check. So we sent our modelers down underground, did 360 video capture of the exact pieces of equipment that worker would be operating. We then were able to work with Vale to put fault conditions in the VR environment on that piece of equipment, and the fault conditions were based on historical insight that the supervisors would say the common issues that our skilled labor workforce are not identifying in the pre-operational circle check are these 10. So then you can envision, as an integrated program, we can then put fault conditions, monitor how long does it take for them to find it, do they find it, and then when they disengage from the VR experience, we had almost like a one-way window. What was most fascinating to me is when they disengaged, they're sitting down with the trainer, and there might have been 2 or 3 others in the classroom to have that peer interaction. They talked about the learning experience, which again, the data shows drives knowledge retention. So the next day, the next month, the next shift that worker is on, the experience was so meaningful that it helps in the educational journey to really ensure that they identify that. So, quite proudly, Vale was the first one that gave us access to a handful of their workers. They provided feedback on the experience. And that solution is now being deployed in other mining companies within Canada at this point.
Okay, thanks for that. So the next question is directed to Samantha and Keith. What opportunities do advancements in technology provide to the mine workers? And on the flip side, what are the challenges that these advancements pose?
There's so many new technologies that are being used in the mines, and for decades. You can think back to a lot of the technologies and the ability to benefit the workers. And I think back over my career over 30 years. There was an opportunity to do remote CMS, like scanning of your cavity monitoring of your stopes, and link it back to the engineering geology designs, and that technology's come a long way. And that's for me, I'm an engineer and have been head of the MTS group over my career, and that was always a big risk for us. It was to having our survey team go in and CMS those stopes. And so now we're able to use drones, different LiDAR technology that will give us that information and really keep people safe. There's no need for people to walk past the brow and have a look in the stope and see how it's doing. And even simple things. I was just having lunch earlier today, and I'm happy to hear, actually, Vale is still using these little blinker on the back of the hat. We have a lot of surveyors on foot underground, surveyors, geologists, engineers, planners, as well as the operation maintenance personnel. And these blinkers are a way to help to signify there's somebody there in this dark environment underground, and still being used. I mean, this was technology that's very simple that came from the KID operations that came into Vale and is still in use today. Those are simple things that we can do for our industry, and I think there's, tele-remote operation. We've been doing that for decades as well, but starting to pick up steam because we have enabling technologies to allow to do that more proficiently across the different operations. Autonomous, this is also something that's gaining a lot of attraction on surface and underground, to be fair. And so all of those types of new technologies are helping us to be a safer environment for workers. Proximity detection, collision avoidance, all of these things are coming into our industry to help our workers and to help our environment, our mining industry to be safer. Those are some of the things that come top of mind. I will say, when I first came into this industry, there was a lot of work being done by INCO and working with Queen's University, and from that actually spun out ESG, seismic monitoring. And this is standard. Any mine, as we go deeper, any mine has a seismic system. And I think we can thank industry and the work that they do with academics and small, medium enterprises and organizations like NORCAT to bring technologies to help us to have safer mines. We're at the point where we can actually take tagging and tracking of people and link it to seismic data. And from there, not just hazard, but risk map in real time. We're starting to pick up seismic activity in this zone, move out. This is near and dear to my heart because, while at Creighton, with the graveyard crew who are mucking during right after our central blast at 2 a.m, you don't want them into seismically active areas. So this is in real time, have an ability to notify those workers and move them out when the risk is increasing. Those are just some of the ideas, Derek, that I can share.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think when it comes to technology too, right, it's funny because I think about this with our younger workers and our workforce in general, and I'm going to talk about that in a second on younger workers and my daughter. I can just imagine her response. Dad, you can talk about younger people? Yeah, what do you know? You're old. All right, and when I look back at technology, right, how much has changed, and I think about when I'm looking at psychological health and safety and thinking about hazards in our workplace, our work is changing. Our work is changing, and new hazards are developing with new technologies, and how we deal with them will be different. We need to assess them differently from a risk management perspective. And thinking about from a psychological health perspective, I think about our work we're doing at Cote with the autonomous vehicles. That creates a whole another set of job skills and demands for the individuals who are running those types of technologies. And we need to be aware about what those are, assess what those are, figure out what are some of the hazards there that we can look at from a psychological health and safety perspective to ensure that we're equipping and monitoring our individuals as well as the jobs to ensure that we are doing our best to manage some of those things and being mindful of them and making sure that we're training folks properly and looking at how we do that. And so those are some of the things that when we're thinking of changing technologies, what kind of comes to my mind as we move, as our mining technology evolves, as we work forward, how we're moving more into that type of more of that technology and knowledge-based work. So that's the kind of things that I think about a lot.
That was a great answer. You almost answered the next question. So we'll keep the microphone with you.
Okay. Well,
the next one's about BEVs, battery electric vehicles. So with the rapid advancement of the technology, what do you see, and this is for all the panelists, but we'll start with Keith. What do you see as the biggest benefits and then also the potential drawbacks? Because one of the things, from my view, there's some risks around the technology outpacing the regulations and the understanding and the safety aspects of those sorts of things. So we'd like your opinions on that.
Yeah, I more think of it very similar to what I was just talking about beforehand. I think about what's changed in the work, how we do the work. In terms of what's involved in the work. Again, with technology, I'm not the technology guy. I don't get into all that stuff. I just know what's even that's probably very complicated too on how we feel and how we think. But I think thinking about the same thing, just if our technology is changing and how we're changing, we need to ensure we're assessing that risk, understanding those hazards related to that, particularly the physical and or psychological social hazards that are related to these jobs and how they change and what does that have an effect on our individuals who are operating in those areas with these vehicles.
Continue? Yep. Okay. So I think of it from the technical side as well, Keith. Obviously, people are very important into this equation as well as the economics. Technically, let's think about this. So using battery electric fleet underground, it's you're swapping out a diesel engine for a battery, and there are no emissions. It's quiet. It's less heat. There are huge benefits if you're the operator. I know the very first trials we had at Coleman, the workers liked that. They really liked it compared to the diesels because of the heat and the emissions, really, in those narrow vein zones where they're mining. And I have to tell you, I went underground at Macassa. I think I met somebody from Macassa today. And when we were first looking at the battery electric vehicles to bring them to Vale, and there was a diesel, actually, a small scoop that was coming down the ramp, and we were in that area, jumped into the safety bay, and it drove by, and it was night and day from the battery electric machine that was just down the drift. And because of the heat, the emissions, the dust that was churned up from this machine. So that is obvious, that those are the benefits. And like I said, the workers like it. And, the challenge, I think, is going to be the cycle time. Just changing the shift schedule, putting those charging stations in locations that are on return air, so you're not pumping more heat into your mine and things like that. But I'm sure Frank can elaborate on some of those points.
Thanks, Samantha. You set me up there. That's good. I can speak to our operation. So at Creighton Mine, we're planning on mining down to 10,000 feet. There is no other way to do that with the ventilation systems we have and the heat that presents itself. There is no other way to do that than to use BEV vehicles or trolley assist type vehicles, electric vehicles. I can say, we run 2 scoops and 2 trucks right now in Creighton Deep that are BEV. The placement of the charging stations, the number of batteries that we have on charge, and so on and so forth is very, very important. The crews are learning how to optimize those systems, and luckily we have our operations center based in our North Atlantic's main office, which helps us track and understand how people are optimizing. So we can't do it for them. The workforce, we have some crews that have really embraced it. The workforce is really learning how to optimize the use of BEV vehicles. I can say in the 6 years I was gone, when I left, I was the manager at Creighton Mine, and now coming back, the first time I visited, going down to the deep, I noticed a remarkable difference in heat at Creighton Mine. The use of the BEV fleet at Creighton has made a significant difference on temperatures. It was a lot warmer when I left. The use of BEV vehicles at Creighton has significantly helped. And I think that we're going to see some significant benefits as we go into the future, as we learn to use more and more of them, as we optimize performance, and learn when to swap batteries and what cycle times look like. But we have been increasing the use of those BEV vehicles, and we're seeing some really great positive outcomes, some great feedback from the crews, and I think that it's just a matter of time before they become widely embraced and the technology gets to the point where batteries last longer and so on. When it comes to regulation, the introduction of BEV equipment really highlights the importance of using risk-based approach to mitigating hazards. So we've done quite a bit of work to understand, what does a battery fire look like? What firefighting equipment do we need in those events? And working very closely with Ontario Mine Rescue to make sure that our crews or our mine rescue teams are equipped with the right tools to fight battery fires, looking at what risks exist with the charging stations and so on. And so we've done quite a bit of work there to understand that and move forward. And again, it's only by working together with the crews, the workforce, the joint health and safety committees, and our health and safety groups and risk management teams that we get that across the line and work together. I think everybody understands the benefits. We're starting to understand and we're working through the risks, and doing that together is what's really important, because there is no future in mining at depth without electrification of our fleet.
Yeah, thanks. We'll just have to move on from BEVs, but just my final comment on that is that WSN's done some outstanding work on risk assessments and hosting a battery electric vehicle symposium. So that work is underway and it's been very well received, and if you haven't got involved in that, I encourage you to do so. And also at the Mining Legislative Review Committee side, we've established a standing subcommittee on battery electric vehicles, and we've got some really, really knowledgeable, some of the best people in the industry are involved, both from labor and industry side, and there's a lot of good work going on, and we got a bit of catch up to do, so I think we got it well in hand. So we're going to move on to mental health, and I'm going to address a couple of questions to Keith, being the expert in the house. So research shows that younger people typically struggle with mental health issues more now than the general population, and more now than ever. What are your thoughts on the young people in the industry, and what does industry need to do to address those situations? And as companies, what can we do to, bring it to the forefront, without overloading people?
Yeah, good point there. I think with regards to young people, and I was asking my daughter, and she was saying I was really old, and I said, well, what do we know about young people and their mental health? What do I know? Well, I know I've worked with a number of individuals that have struggled with their mental health and well-being, as well as I have a daughter. I have two girls, young professionals in the industry, and one that's really struggled with their mental health and well-being. And trying to make it and be a professional as she's doing now, which I couldn't be more proud. But what we do know now is that think about it, in the last year, more than 50% of our young people have struggled with their mental health and well-being, to the point where they needed support and some assistance. Looking at right now, when you look at burnout, anxiety, depression, are really common in our young people, along with financial pressures that they're under as well, are significant struggles that they have. And when we ask young people now, we say, well, tell me a bit about work. How's that affecting your mental health and well-being? 40% of them say work is having a negative impact on my mental health and well-being. That's almost 1 in 2. And 36% of them will tell you as well, they will leave a job to find another job that has better mental health support benefits to support them. So what does that tell us as an organization that we need to be doing? And I always go, well, what's affecting them at work? Why are they looking to leave? What are things that we could be doing? And it kind of informs me around that. And to the point is that we really need to be addressing mental health in a formalized, structured way in our workplaces. And we need to be asking our young people, what are the reasons that their mental health is being affected, and listening to them, their stories about what's going on. And what do we need to be doing? But to be able to do that, as an organizations, we need to create psychological safety in our organizations so that people, when we ask them, don't feel like they can actually tell us. And I think that's one of the big things, is creating that environment within our organizations is going to be key to learning what we need to do as organizations to continue to support our young people, because they are our future. In mining, retention and attraction of talent. We're all competing for talent across the board, and we need to make sure that we're doing and listening and creating those environments where we learn and understand what's going on. Because again, we need to stop talking and start listening, right? Because I don't think I've ever learned anything while I was talking. And so I think that one of the things is, that kind of brings me to some of the key things that I think we need to be doing as organizations, is setting ourselves up as being proactive. So we need to be asking, surveying, figuring out what those are. What are those unique things? What are the things that are common to our workforce? What are things that are unique to the different generations of our workforce? And customizing our psychological health and safety programming, our mental health programming to individuals. And ensuring that as we're working with individuals, Roy was talking earlier today about leading by example. Right? And I think thinking about trust, building trust, thinking about building that. I mean, people can't be what they can't see, and if they see your actions being different than your words and your values, you think they're going to trust you, you think they have that environment where they can actually talk to you and hear you, and they simply won't. And we need to be intentional about how we do that. And then when we're doing that as well, mentoring, right? Mentoring our young people. And listening to them too, we've got a lot to learn, right? I may be old, but I don't know everything. And it's important for us to learn as well, because we've got as much to learn as we do to teach. And in terms of our workplace is also the reward, the recognition, catching people. I like that one of Roy's, right? Catch people doing things right. We're so easy to correct, and that's simple, that's easy for us to do, but catching people doing things right and reinforcing, that really helps in terms of that fostering that environment that we want to create within our work environments. And then training, right? I think the other thing is around our young people now are more comfortable with the language of mental health. And I look at that in our organization. We're going to do anything well to start with. We need to learn the language. How can we talk and communicate if we don't know what the language is? And this is some of the things that I think, as the mental health training that I've done, and I've done with Vale, and then doing with Cote, and done with LifeMark, it's really around teaching language so we can all talk about this. Because it isn't easy, not easy to know what are the words to use that make sense to talk about mental health in a non-sort of judgmental, non-threatening way, and an open way, and we should be able to talk about it very easily. And that's what we would like to get to for sure. And then in addition to that, it's around making sure that we have accessible ways for people to get care. Looking at our benefit plans to ensure our benefit plans are supporting the needs of our young people, as well as in the ways they want to access it. Meeting people where they are, who they are, how they are, with the services they need at the right time. And it's figuring what that is for our individual, in which way, and have multiple ways to access it. There's different ways, self-guided ways, there's supported ways, coached ways, hybrid ways. We need to be flexible about that. And we need to bring, where possible, bring the care close as we can to the person for accessibility to them, to our work sites. Can we be delivering care in and around our work sites? The virtual world with COVID has opened up all of that for us. Our apps and our phones and all those things, it's possible to deliver care on work sites, in our workplaces, in ways that are inclusive, and in ways that people can respond to it, in ways that they can receive the help and support that they need when they're struggling. And engaging our young people and understanding what that is going to be critical for us as we go forward. And the last thing I say, is really, we're on the back end of the sort of the secondary, tertiary side of the health continuum. We move up the health continuum to building our skills, strengthening going at a strengths-based skill approach to improve the mental well-being, the mental fitness, the resilience, which I'm looking forward to hearing Alan talk about, in that too. How do we build those skills just like we're building our physical health and our physical wellness? I mean, you can be doing the same things to allow to protect us and buffer us from the times that we know we might struggle.
Okay, thank you for that.
Goes. Sorry, I know I'm probably going on. Carrying on.
Yeah, we're only halfway through the question, so.
Oh, there we go.
But thank you very much. That was very insightful. So we're going to move on to the industry in general and some of the issues that we're going to face in the future. So what do you see, and we'll start with Don on this one. So what do you think the mining industry's challenges are going to be in the next 10 years, the top couple that come to mind from a health and safety perspective?
Well, not to bolt on to you, to Keith's comments here, but I do think mental well-being in the workplace is going to be a major variable. And if I take that thread, just because I think it's an important discussion to have, just to give a sense of optimism as to where technology is playing and things that, skilled labor industries and mining can do. Just to share a quick story, one of our other units at NORCAT serves as an innovation center. And we're working with it's no longer a startup, but a tech venture that's rooted in intellectual property developed out of Cambridge University. And essentially the IP is a diagnostic tool that is widely used amongst psychiatrists and psychologists to identify at a rudimentary proxy level cognitive disorders, depression, anxiety, fatigue, like things that could be, challenging. What's been really interesting is they have a new CEO, they've raised a bunch of capital, and they're now migrating to using this application for a fit for duty on a daily basis or ad hoc basis in the skilled labor industries. And what it is a 3.5 to 4.5 minute gaming application using an iPad that can do one of two things. One, based on how the individual fills it out, it might trigger an alert. And over a period of time, and the earlier question around the benefits of artificial intelligence, you can develop pattern recognition over history that said worker historically has a trend of this, and then all of a sudden today there's an anomaly. Maybe something has happened. Maybe there's fatigue. Maybe there's a social or societal issue that's impacting that worker's capability. So this notion of an iPad gaming type environment to subsequently be deployed, and it hasn't really effectively been done yet. They're just migrating and pivoting to apply this. Quite proudly, we're going to be deploying this at the NORCAT Underground Center to test and validate it. But in terms of emerging trends, the ability for a mining operator on a daily basis to do some sort of cognitive assessment to ensure that that worker is fit for duty, and all the trigger does is notify the supervisor to have a conversation. It's just a correlation proxy, and it's rooted in 30 years of clinical psychiatry and psychology, so it works. So if you think of the emerging trends, there's going to be a broader adoption of these technologies to ensure the workers are safe, they're productive, and their colleagues are safe and productive as well. So I have a lot of optimism in that as an example, just to build on Keith, and I'll leave the others to talk about all the other tech that's happening in the sector.
So usually, the question that gets asked is what keeps you up at night. So when you start to ask that question and translate that to over the next 10 years, for me, it's access to skilled labor and being confident that people are trained, they're competent, and they're confident in the work they're doing, to work safely, and that we can have, I think, that assurance that that's occurring at all times. With the advent of battery minerals and electrification throughout the world, I think that mining is not going away. Mining is going to play a key role in electrification into the future, and attracting people to the industry is getting more and more difficult. We need to develop ways, working with partners like NORCAT and other partners, to recruit, onboard, and train people and help them develop the skills that they require to safely do the work. I think there's a lot of tools that we can use to do that. I think autonomous vehicles and remote operations are also going to play a big role as we mine deeper and farther away from our shafts and we're in the more seismically active areas. Autonomous is going to play a big role, but again, that requires a lot of training. And you know, we are a people business. Mining depends on people regardless of whether they're autonomous operations. You know, it's always going to require people. And so getting access to those people, recruiting them, getting them into the industry, training them well, and providing ourselves with assurance that we've done a good job is the stuff that keeps me worried, because it's not easy. My son's just about to get into industry in one way or another at some point here. And those are the things that go behind, you know, those are the things that are working in my mind, in the back of my mind. Do I trust my son to go work for that company? Do I know that that company has a good reputation for health and safety? Do they have good development programs? And you know, I didn't think about that as much, I'll say 5 or 6 years ago, but it's really coming to the forefront now that you know, a family member of mine is looking to get into industry, whether that be automotive or mining or whatsoever, wherever he ends up. I'm trying to push him into mining, of course. But, you know, wherever he ends up, those are the things that are going through my mind. You know, how is that person going to be trained? How are they going to be cared for as an employee? And what are the programs that exist in that company to make them better?
Yeah, thanks. So that's a good segue into the next question for Samantha. It's around retention and attraction. So in your view, how do we attract the younger people to the mining industry, and how do we promote it? And then once we get them there, how do we actually retain them? Because it's a tough job market out there, and there's a lot of negativity around mining in general. And if you listen to all the naysayers, it's not a great place to be. But obviously, we're all in mining, and it is a great place to be. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we should hire, is it Michelle? Who's our MC today? You know, talk about an advocate, and you've only just met us, right? So, it's a challenge to encourage the younger generation into this industry. It has a history, a reputation, and it, you know, in my mind, I don't know about anybody else in this room, but if you think on your career, how much training you've had, how much safety conversations you've had, you know, it's a lot. It's probably the most of any industry that I can think of. It's our industry because we care about people. So it's all in how we advocate for our industry between all of us, and the things that we say and that we do, and how we support this industry and encourage the next generation to think about this industry, because it is very exciting. Cannot think of anything more exciting than mining, how much you have control and how things change every day, every shift. One of the most exciting things about the mining industry is the fact that we are a family. I actually noted this on Facebook yesterday. A friend from Vale had posted, and she talked about, you know, being part of a family, and that it really feels that way, you know. And I think that's attractive to the younger generation as well. It's what keeps me in this industry and makes me smile every day and get out of bed every day, is because I love working with the people that are part of this industry. The way to create a pool, I think there are some interesting actions that are being taken by some of the mining industry companies. And so what they are doing are helping to create a pool of let's just say prerequisite, already skilled, at least to get in the door when a job posting goes up in a community in Marathon. You know, I have the prerequisites now to apply to that job, so I already have a foot in the door. I'm talking about Goldcorp. They creating choices. They created a program to help get the people in their community basic skills so that they can apply to the jobs that are coming up on the board from time to time. And they're good employees. They work in the neighborhood. They know everybody. Those are the people that you want to try and attract and build the skill set and bring into the industry. I mean, I'm going to speak for the Canadian Institute of Mining. We are funding, Science North is actually doing the work. They're building a game that will be deployed across Canada for kids, and it'll be linked to a curriculum from K to 12. Right? So we're trying to promote the mining industry right through the curriculums in the schools across Canada. So this is an advocacy role that we're playing, just really trying to get a better image of our industry out to society at large. And we have to be, we talk about trust this morning. We have to walk the talk. When we say we care about the environment, care about the environment. When you say you care about people, care. Show that you care. It's the actions you take that are going to make the trust with the communities where you operate. And that is like fundamental for license to operate. We need to listen and work together in order to supply the metals that are required for climate change that is happening today. So I think if we can wrap this up and continue to support our industry in this way, we will attract talent. We will bring them in. They will be in that family. They'll be in a trusted environment. It's safe, responsible. It's what gets those kids out of bed every day, going in and help make a difference in the mine. Keep it safe, keep it fun, and a very well-paid job, let's face it, right? So a very great quality of life for the younger generation, what they care about. That's what they care about, right? Anyway, I really think that there's an opportunity for us to do better and follow some of these other leader mining companies in order to create the pool and then build the trust and keep them in our industry and helping to support us. That's my 2 cents.
That's a very good 2 cents. So with regards to the influx of the new workers, I was at a presentation yesterday and they were talking about they anticipate the need for over 5,000 new workers, not all young necessarily, but new to the industry before 2030. So that's going to be a real challenge, obviously. And what kind of strategies could we employ to make sure that knowledge transfer of the boomers goes well with the younger and the new to the industry generation? So I see that you're on the hot seat there, Frank. You got thrown the microphone, so.
Well, I wasn't sure where you were going with the question, but the thing that we often remind many of the mining companies that we work with are, people join a company because of the company, people leave a company because of who they work for. So if you think of the attraction, what's fascinating in some of these, I'll call them closed door sessions we have with senior executives, we'll have discussions around their innovation priorities and initiatives to drive productivity. So deploying a battery electric fleet, deploying teleremote autonomous. But over the last 3 or 4 years, the conversations have gone on to extend to say, yes, we will acquire and deploy these technologies to win the productivity, shareholder value battle, but now we need to do it to win the battle for talent. People want jobs that are different than what historically the mining industry would portray. If you can present an opportunity to a young worker to say, all else equal, you can operate an LHD by flying in for 2 weeks and home for 1 week underground, 12 hours a day, or you can do it from the confines of an urban coffee shop using a hardline teleremote system to operate that same vehicle. What's fascinating, and Keith had made mention to it, money is no longer the primary driver. That individual will sacrifice compensation for the latter job of using that technology. And mining executives are realizing this. They're investing in tech and productivity, investing in tech to improve productivity, but there is now a supplementary discussion in those meeting rooms around we need to do it to win the battle for talent. And those companies that tell that story, I guarantee you, if you go to the campuses right now, if you talk to a University of Waterloo engineering student and you describe to him or her what some of the emerging technologies are being used in the mining industry, and then you portray that into what jobs those are, you are going to see a lot more interested individuals in those jobs. So that's on the attraction side, and I could speak to the retention side, but I'll let someone else talk.
Yeah, so as it turns out, we're pretty quickly running out of time. So what I'm going to do now is we'll start with Keith, and just any final thoughts from the questions or random thoughts would be appreciated. So.
Yeah, no, I think the only thought I had, I think that I wanted to share briefly was, I know that one of the questions was around, we were talking a lot about zero harm. We've been talking a lot about that to get to zero harm and fatality prevention. And I think what came to my mind last night, I was thinking of this through, was that, and I mentioned that in one of our training meetings that I was at with IAMGOLD. It was around, if we need to be serious about zero harm, if we're going to be serious about it, we need to consider and bake in psychological health and safety analysis review and managing those hazards in our workplace. Because if you got rid of all the physical hazards in our work, we got those things down as low as we could get, and you didn't manage the psychological mental health hazards, you'd still be getting incidences, injuries, you'd still be getting them. So we really need to marry those things together, and it's really important for us to do that around mental health. And as we know, and if people don't know, mining is the single deadliest industry when it comes to mental health. Around with suicide, it is the highest driver of suicide in any industry. And we need to get on top of that. Every 2 days we lose one of our family. And we need to do what we can to support our folks out there because they're at greater risk than other industries. And that's really important for all of us. If we want to succeed, be successful, and be a place where we want to come to work and nobody leaves, with a fatality or otherwise. And so just some thoughts that I had.
Yeah, thank you. Samantha?
Yeah, I'm going to come at it from an engineering perspective. I think, honestly, we really need to think about designing our operations differently. I think about the highway between Sudbury and Toronto, and I don't know if you guys remember, it used to be 2-lane, and there are engineers who re-engineered that so that it's divided highway. Why don't we learn from the civil construction and take that underground? Why do we put up with collisions as a potential between equipment and people? I think we're missing a bigger picture here of actually going back to the drawing board and doing some designs, really implementing that technology in a way so that it's successful and that the mines are becoming safer. And I will say that having these types of conversations I think are critical, absolutely critical. I learned you learn so much through safety shares. Having those conversations with your crews every day I think are how we're going to help to improve our industry as well.
Thanks, Samantha. That was really good. I'm going to come at it from the recruitment selection, I think, side of things. So we typically, the mining industry is a really great industry. There's some really good people. And, I'd like to say it here in Sudbury, there's some of the greatest people because that's why I came back. We need to get into the schools. We need to provide, we need to get access to people by providing people with the knowledge of what exists for career pathways and choices. I'm close to somebody who runs a co-op program out of a local high school, and that person gets approached all the time about, I don't know what I want to do. And in a mining community with 200,000 people, we have kids who are not sure what they want to do. Well, the mining industry provides multiple avenues. You can be an electrician, a mechanic, a heavy-duty maintenance technician, a fixed plant maintenance technician. You can be a mining engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. You can go into supervision, into management. There's a multitude of opportunities that people don't understand. And we need to do a better job of promoting the mining industry and showing people what choices exist in front of them. They can stay local. They can, we can go and market ourselves. And I know that the Ontario Mining Association's got a program that they're trying to develop so that market the industry. But we need to, as industry, we need to, people like myself and, managers and miners and engineers need to get out into the schools and take a bit of time to talk to not just their kids, but talk to their kids' friends and get into the classroom and work with academia to build curriculum that, somewhat like we've done with health and safety curriculum in universities. We need to start to push that down now into high schools and preschools so that kids understand the avenues that exist for them, and also start to think with a healthy a safety mindset. Understanding risk. What is that? I still talk to teenage kids right now that don't understand what risk is, and of course they all think they're proof. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah, that was really well spoken. The only insight I can share is, the global mining industry is undergoing a technology transformation unlike any time in its history. So there is a strong adoption, procurement pathway, deployment of these emerging technologies that is creating jobs and opportunities that I totally agree with Frank, that the younger generation is not aware of. So this ambassadorial, physically boots on the ground, educating and inspiring students, I believe is what other jurisdictions have done in other industries, actually does prove to have positive results. It makes sense because we have an asset called the NORCAT Underground Center in Onaping, and we host high school and university and college groups from around the world. And part of our role is to take them on a tour to see installed and showcased emerging technologies. And I can tell you without fail, 95% of them had no idea that there were technologies, and then segueing that into job opportunities within the mining industry. There's a narrative issue. And we're on the cusp of, and I guess, a continuance of a really fascinating technology transformation. Now is the time. Absolutely now is the time to do so. The only other piece I would have, in terms of the retention, this notion of, people leave because of who they work for. The investments that mining operators, mining contractors have made in supervisors to listen, to be aware, to identify, be it cognitive challenges or anything, is going to become so much more important in the coming years. So I'm really happy that everyone has highlighted that. But we're seeing a lot of mining operators coming to us saying, how do we improve our supervisors' capabilities to identify? And we need to figure that out. So I'm very optimistic that there's recognition that the role of the supervisor will play in supporting the mining workforce going forward.
Yeah, well, thanks for those comments. Just to add to that, the Ontario Mining Association is doing some really significant work on trying to attract young workers when they're in public school, when they're in high school. Get them interested before they've been told what career they should follow. Get them to get a chance to go to a mine, any kind of exposition they can see. Try to get something into the curriculum. So the OMA has a really good defined strategy, and they're going to be doing a lot more. They've been doing this for years, but they're going to be doing a lot more focused work on it. So that's a very positive thing for the industry. So this really brings to close our discussion. I'd like to really thank the panelists. There's a few questions I didn't get to. We could have easily done this for a couple hours because you guys are so good. So thank you very much.